Welcome, Harrison Vail. Harrison is head of brand and communication for Pools and was a former journalist at Vanity Fair, writing on arts and culture. So as I think some of you know, one of my main quests in my work is to be able to determine independent revenue lines for nonprofits. So I've been talking to Harrison quite a bit about what opportunities Web3 would provide to nonprofits. And I think that Harrison has taken a dive into what Aware is doing and what you have available, and he has some thoughts that I don't know about what Aware could actually do to create independent revenue lines. But maybe before you go into that, Harrison, why don't you talk a little bit about what you do and Pools and why you're interested in the arts?
Yes, no, it's a great question. Thank you for the intro. First of all, this is so wonderful and exciting, and it's rare in my new kind of burgeoning line of work of Web3, this kind of big scary world of Web3, to bring these kind of conversations into the arts and culture in a meaningful way. So this is quite an opportunity. So as Scott mentioned, I'm head of brand and communications at a company called Pools. We're an American company, but we are founded by a Frenchman who is a kind of 3-time crypto Web3 entrepreneur. So we have half of our team in France and half in America. Most of the team is bilingual, et cetera. And
so is Harrison, by the way, excuse me.
Yes,
he went to Sciences Po as well.
Wonderful.
There we go. So we straddle the Atlantic, as it were. We sort of take a different approach to this notion of Web3. And I don't know, do you know what Web3 sort of, because a lot of people, I throw that around
go ahead.
a lot.
Please go ahead and explain briefly Web3.
Sure, yeah. And also, I would like this to be a kind of conversation too, because there are a lot of concepts that I think are probably foreign to a lot. They certainly were to me coming from a Vanity Fair. So the notion of Web3 comes from, we have Web 1, Web 2, and Web 3. They're kind of the 3 large chapters of the internet, the kind of online world. Web 1 being when it was just this notion of putting information online, right? Blogs, kind of very static information. Web 2 then was when we had the emergence of these big gatekeepers, the sort of Facebooks, the Googles, which aggregated all this information on the web and were really the gatekeepers of this data and kind of aggregated all this data. We are now moving to this world of Web 3, where the kind of power of the internet is moving back into the hands of the users of the internet. So we see this with the rise of kind of DeFi, decentralized finance, social tokens, which is really what my company does and what I do. NFTs is a very popular one, of course. I'm sure you're familiar with those. But I think this conversation I'd like to limit more to this notion of social tokens, which is really what we do, and how that could potentially be an additional revenue stream for Aware. So that's what we do at Pools. We create social tokens for creatives, creators, artists, magazines. We just did Cultured Magazine's token, which was quite exciting. The first media token, which was great. And so in my role, I lead everything related to kind of the branding and communication side of things. So how we talk about this project to the world and really kind of connect these different discrete worlds of crypto, decentralized finance, culture, the arts, et cetera.
I think it's probably unfortunate that we don't have time for you to give us more specific examples of what has worked with these other organizations.
What is a social token?
Well, that's a great question.
That's
a great point d'entrée.
Okay, begin it. She's right. Begin a social token.
So the notion of a social token, we all know kind of, we've heard of Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, that sort of a thing. A social token is simply a cryptocurrency that is not an NFT. It has nothing to do with NFTs, although NFTs can be involved, but they're completely separate. A social token is a cryptocurrency that is made for an individual, there's a person behind the social token, right? So rather than Bitcoin, which is kind of just in the ether and is a large project that's spread kind of across the world and is supported by the work of many different computers, et cetera, this whole kind of network, a social token is the official token of a person, a brand, a thing. It's actually attached to something that we can kind of see and touch and know. So that's kind of the primary difference. I would say the core piece of the social token element that I think is relevant for this conversation is the notion of the community that is buying, selling, earning these social tokens. And as I was kind of preparing for this and just doing some thinking around that, concretely kind of what that means is if we can consider a world where Aware had a social token, this would mean that there would be a cryptocurrency actually for Aware, right? It would be the Aware token, let's say. And I want you to kind of forget about the fact that it's actually a cryptocurrency and more consider it almost a loyalty program. That's, I think, the best analogy for it. So in the same way that you consider having Amex points, Delta Sky miles, whatever it is, your Air France points that you can use to buy tickets, in this case you would have an aware token that people who are interested in the work that you and the foundation are doing can earn this token for free. There's no sort of money involved. It's not a kind of cash grabby type thing, by engaging with the content that you put out. So let's take the example of the magazine that you guys produce, for example. You could create a way where the only way to access the content that you put out there through the magazine would be by holding this token. And the way that you would earn the token would be by reading more articles in the magazine. So that's certainly what we did for Culture magazine, for example.
Do you mind that I interrupt you a
Please,
second?
please, go for
I think
it.
part of, if I understand them, please also correct me, part of the whole concept of Aware is that it's free and open to everybody.
Mm-hmm. And that's completely consistent with this, actually.
Oh, it is consistent with
completely
this.
consistent. In the same way that anybody can buy a Delta flight, you can also, anybody can be a member of the loyalty program. The idea really is that you're just, instead of just having the doors wide open, you're just checking someone at the door and saying, oh, but to be in part of this, you need to just do this quick little free thing over here that educates you on some concept, now you can come in. So it's just gating, adding one layer. The way that it works well is because what you would do is you would actually decide what the most sort of valuable work that you do, whether that's a seat at the dinner for the prix à oeil or something like that, or some access to an amazing Q&A with an artist. And then essentially, though people would have to accumulate their tokens in order to get access to these things that you already do. So it's not changing or adding any work streams, but potentially adding enormous value add on the back end. And
how does it provide revenue to the nonprofit?
So then it provides revenue because this token actually has a value on the blockchain, right? It can be traded.
I don't understand.
Si, moi j'ai compris. I got it.
Okay.
But, okay, so the way it would work is that we would encourage people to come more and more, to visit more and more the website, for example. Or people who come once to see the biography, because the problem we have is that they read one biography that they need, and then they go away.
Yeah.
And we want them to stay longer on the website to, for
That's
example,
right.
read an article. So we would say to the people, you can earn points, tokens.
It's like,
If you stay longer to the website, or if you come twice during the week or twice a month, you'll earn these tokens, and at the end these tokens will give you the possibility of, I don't know, having a visit for free in Paris.
That's precisely
But
it.
the problem we have with that is we're not international enough. For example, someone in Africa visiting the website. So this person living in Nigeria wants to get some kind of special thing from all the token she got from visiting the website. So what can we give to that person that is living in Nigeria? I don't know.
that I think we can find.
That I think is easy to find.
Okay.
That you can find is something.
Well, and I think, by the way, it could
Okay.
be, what if it's a personal Q&A with you? What if it's a 30-minute phone call with you? What if it's early access to the next edition of the magazine? I mean, there's so much access that things that you guys produce.
So in this particular case, where one of the constraints that Aware has is not sufficient recognition, let's say in the United States,
Right.
which we're talking about, it seems to me that this kind of concept would help that.
Well, the most brilliant part of this whole notion is that, for example, what if one way that they earn the Aware token is by tweeting and sharing on Instagram something that you guys are doing? So let's say in order to
it
get
would really
50
address this particular constraint.
It would address that exact one. In fact, crowdsourcing marketing is one of the biggest applications.
Okay, I love the idea. I think I understand it. But how do we organize that if we wanted to do that? Because that's expensive to organize that.
I've already negotiated for you.
It actually is not expensive at all. It costs nothing.
How do you like
the
that?
dollar cost
This
is
is how I
zero.
negotiate.
Is
The
that
dollar cost,
possible?
it is indeed possible. Welcome to America.
We just had to find Harrison.
Right, exactly. You fell on the right person.
No, because we do have a wonderful community, international. We have a huge number of followers on Instagram, but we do have quite a lot for the niche we're working on, and we have about 60 to 70 thousands of people visiting the website per month, and we may have more if we told these people, you can.
I think there's going to be a 70,000
Learn
as a
tokens.
base is really insignificant for the kind of thing you're doing.
It is.
So you
that's the problem. Yeah.
But they already, I mean, it clearly Aware offers, it has an offer of interest to everybody all over the world.
It would be incredible. And also, by the way, not for nothing, you know, from where I sit on the branding communication side, the story that you can tell about the first art foundation that launches a token, I mean, that's kind of an incredible story.
I love that. That could definitely.
And I'm still sorry, I still don't understand how it actually provides a revenue stream for the nonprofit.
Well, in the same way that for example,
I'm like a pit bull.
it would be like if you had, I love this analogy just because I think it speaks to most people, but your Amex points, if you could then go and trade them on the stock market, right? If you could go and trade.
And so it will be set up so that the nonprofit gets a percentage of whatever trade that occurs.
Yeah. And the nonprofit would end up holding the majority of their token. There are many factors that go into what determines the value of the token, one of them being the amazing work that's being done, right? And the way that you're leveraging and telling that story. The thing that we've seen that is the most incredible is the network effect of the community, right? So once this community is owning this token, that becomes its own world, right? That is sharing information about Aware, they're creating information, they're writing biographies, they're doing the translation work. You can leverage that community to sort of do whatever you want. But they end up talking amongst themselves, talking about the token, hyping the token up, hyping the nonprofit up. It's not that you're creating this social token and that's just going to the world and you have to get all these people to buy the social token. That's actually not what's happening here. What happens first is you create this token, this rewards program, if you will, for your community that's existing right now, for people like you, for everybody here, right? I mean, it's for the people who are already engaging with Aware's content and who know about Aware. The idea is that these people are the initial holders of the token. They're the core community that then expands and expands and expands given what the token's doing naturally. That said, I do think that there are some steps that can be taken, which I'm sure you will address in your part as well, around how to tell that story in a more streamlined way, a more effective way to maybe perhaps broaden the aperture a little bit in terms of who can come into that world. Because you're right, I mean, but the content is amazing and rich, and there is clearly a community for this content. How do we just expand that a little bit or create a little bit more or have the community help create more? In fact, that's quite an interesting application for it as well. Do you get some people to help, create some of this content and propagate it?
So Harrison, what I understood from our previous conversations is you've actually taken a deep dive looking at Aware and what it has available.
Yes.
And you do think that it offers, your assessment as a professional in this sector, is you feel it does offer unique opportunities for creating these social tokens.
4,000%. I mean,
4,000%.
Completely. There is the problem that we often run into with creators, artists that we work with is that the content creation process, which is essentially what you are giving to the community to earn the token and to incentivize them to earn that token, is small. There's a paucity of that content because either you're an artist and it takes forever to come out with an album, or you do not have that problem,
no,
right?
I mean,
we are surrounded by books and books. I mean, that is not the issue here. You are already sitting on a treasure trove of this content.
Absolutely.
That's just a question of tiering and gating for the community.
Is this really only going to be addressed to younger communities, and communities like Candy and myself, will it appeal to them as well? What is your view of this?
I believe it will, and this is what I think we kind of help to do well, is how do you message what this token is and what it's doing? It will require some finessing. It's not the same as launching a token for, Ronaldinho or Evan Mock or some, kind of cool buzzy person. It will require some storytelling and a nuanced approach to how we're talking about what this is.
I like the idea, but I understand that we have to somehow, for these people who have enough tokens, accumulated enough tokens, they have to get something that is not already on the website, right?
But so couldn't this be studio visits or connections to artists?
It can be that, but as I said, we're based in France. We're not international enough to provide studio visit in Nigeria or in Korea we're super international in terms of visitors. So we would have to create special content, but an easy one, like 5 minutes with me or 5 minutes with my team.
On Zoom.
On Zoom.
Yeah.
So it's just that we would have to think about what do we offer to people having earned 100 tokens or whatever,
That's right.
And that's kind of the fun
presumably,
part, exactly.
yeah, you have ideas. And
I do. They're actually
help.
on one
Ah,
of
ouais,
the
super.
He has already
j'aime
has
bien
ideas
l'idée.
to show you.
I like the idea.
Thank you very much,
Thank you so
Harrison. It was
much.
fascinating.
Thank you.
Of course.